Welcome to the untold truth. On this cold winter's day, we'll be delving into one of the sickest and most vile subjects, pedophilia. We'll be focusing on the people who trap these vermins in an expose for all the world to see. We start our journey over 20 years ago. The year's 2002. 50 cents in the club is booming. The original CSI is on TV, and George Bush is delivering his first State of the Union address. In the thicket of it all, two unknown Americans, Xavier Von Rick and Frank Fencepost, ignited a spark that lit an entire generation of pedophile catchers. They started PervertedJustice.com. Xavier grew up poor with an alcoholic father that abandoned him, while his deadbeat dad drowned in liquor and cheap perfume. His mother struggled to put food on the table. As you can imagine, life was anything but easy for young Xavier. But a brighter future awaited him after acceptance into college. But that didn't last long. By 21, he dropped out. Perhaps lacking direction in life, he turned to the internet, as many of us have. He became addicted to group chats, spending a countless number of hours in them, looking for and having stimulating conversations. But there were pedophiles, and lots of them. They were bold, brazen, and not afraid. One particular user, let's call him Mr. Scumbag, spammed a lot of things like, any 14 to 15-year-olds in here want to make money modeling? Xavier was disgusted, but he naively believed these vile humans would soon meet justice. But as the weeks rolled on, nothing happened, and so Xavier felt the need to take matters into his own hands. He wanted to humiliate these pedophiles, to expose them, and make them paranoid. And he did just that. He posed as an underage girl and then doxed the pedophiles by posting their name, address, and chat history on the now defunct website angrygerman.com. Frank Fencepost, a then tattoo artist with a blunt attitude and bold temperament, felt the same way as Xavier. Less is known about his past, but what we do know is that he was a member of the same group chats as Xavier. Frank was disturbed by the cesspool beneath the surface, and in his own words, "I just couldn't sit there and not do something about it, so I guess I just decided to be devious." He posed as a 16-year-old girl named Brandy and doxed the pedophiles by spamming their name and phone numbers in the chats. But it didn't stop there. Frank confronted these people in person at his own home. Story time. In Frank's own words, "I moved on, setting up dates with these guys. I tell them my parents were out of town for the weekend, and of course they'd want to come over. So I gave them my address. Big surprises were in store for the unwary baby rappers who came to my door. For instance, allow me to share with you one of my all-time favorite pedo adventures, one that has come to live in infamy, at least to certain Portland chatters. The Taco Bell caper. Presented here for the first time in its entirety, without commercial interruptions. He was a chatter named Insanity Sam. That's his Yahoo ID. He used to be quite a regular chatter. I was an underaged honey named Brandy, going by horny teen girl. Anyway, the usual. My parents are out of town for the weekend, blah blah blah, right? He basically invited himself over, and I consented, but told him I was hungry and asked him to bring me some Taco Bell burritos. Sure, he generously replied. Anything else? Yes, I told him. A large Pepsi, please. Imagine Sam's surprise when he showed up, grub tucked under his arm, romantic notions filling his simple noggin. He knocks on the door of Brandy's apartment, and this big, stumbly, mean-looking primate answers the door. Hi, Sam, I bellowed. I'm Brandy. The look on poor Sam's face was classic. I can't even begin to describe the fear and confusion that came over his countenance. I noticed the bag he was holding and motioned to it. I see you brought me some burritos, Sam. How nice. Give them here. He obeyed. His anxiety was almost palpable. I glared at him, trying to decide what to do with this perfect specimen of worthlessness that stood before me. Sam, get the fuck out of here, now. I nearly whispered it. Okay. I went back into the house, and as I unwrapped my burritos, I smiled diabolically. A new phase has begun in my life, I knew, but how to make the most of it? Well, to answer his own question, Xavier was the answer. They both knew each other for months and eventually teamed up to form PervertedJustice.com. If you were to have visited this website back in the day, then you'd have been greeted with a directory of chat logs, pictures, and personal information belonging to various pedophiles. In fact, you can visit this website to this very day and experience the same content. They attracted volunteers who masqueraded as children as young as 10 years old, with fake names, fake pictures, fake profiles, fake everything. These volunteers waited like a Venus flytrap in the group chats ran by companies like Yahoo, AOL, MSN, ICQ. After the pedophiles were exposed, members of the community began investigating. Acting as detectives, they tracked down the pedophiles' family, employers, and neighbors to inform them of the nauseating online behavior in what they called follow-ups. And Frank continued to invite unsuspecting men over to his house with food. In one particular case, he and another volunteer answered the door with a baseball bat and a camera. They followed the man, no doubt in shock, back to his minivan while berating him, and then, within hours, doxed him on PervertedJustice.com. But Frank's shenanigans soon came to an end. Time for a hot, black cup of tea. You see, Frank was fired from the organization in 2004. As Xavier put it, he was dating one Perverted Justice member while sleeping with another. His girlfriend must have found out because she threatened to message his side hoe. Frank wasn't having it. He retaliated by threatening her. As seen in excerpts from text messages that Xavier got a hold of, Frank threatened to, and I quote, "Walk into your work and shit on your desk. Then I'll start getting really serious. I won't hesitate for a second." Later in the conversation, he continued, "Any variation on this theme, and you'll be looking for work, trying to make your house and car payments, picking up pieces and going, 'What the fuck just happened?' And you know how fast I'm capable of making that happen." Xavier felt this was totally out of line. He cut ties with his co-founder by erasing all traces of Frank's existence on the website and moving on without him since 2004. Frank wasn't the only one with drama under his belt. If you were thinking Xavier had a very keen sense of justice, then you'd be right. And it's for this reason the tea's still hot. Bruce Risley was a then married 44-year-old software engineer, private pilot, and ham radio enthusiast. He hated Perverted Justice. He threatened to unleash a virus that would infect their volunteers, harassed members by exposing their follow-up investigations, and even threatened to fuck or beat a member. He used to be a volunteer himself, but had a falling out with Xavier. We don't know why for sure, but according to Bruce, Perverted Justice used his son's pictures to catch pedophiles without his permission. In any event, Xavier contacted the police, but the police moved slow, like turtles, and Bruce was becoming too bold too quickly. As Xavier is known to do, he again took matters into his own hands. Xavier catfished Bruce, pretending to be an online adult woman named Holly. They texted for several months and sexted on 2 separate occasions. Bruce eventually fell in love with her, and she him. They decided to move in together. Bruce came clean to his wife, rented an apartment, and drove to the airport to pick her up to start a new life together. Bruce, with flowers in hand, waited for his lover to depart the airplane, but no one showed up. Xavier found someone to snap a picture of him innocently waiting for his lover. He then posted this online, stating, and I quote, "When you attempt to threaten members of pervertedjustice.com, this can happen to you." Tonight, Bruce Risley stood around at an airport, flowers in hand, waiting for a woman that turned out to be a man. He's not in love. He has destroyed his relationship with his wife. He has denigrated her, and he has betrayed all those around him. He has no one. He has no more secrets. We at Perverted Justice will only tolerate so much in the way of threats and attacks upon us. Bruce couldn't forgive this. He wrote a virus that gave him control of over 100,000 computers. He used these computers like drones, directing them to attack websites that posted articles on the humiliating Holly event, such as the Rolling Stone and Radar. In other words, he carried out a DDoS attack. In 2010, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and ordered to pay $90,000 in restitution. Xavier would later go on to state, "As much as I hated Bruce Risley for what he tried to do," he says, "I felt bad for him in the sense that the guy definitely has some mental issues. My hope is that Risley gets mental health help. He sticks with his wife and they live a happy, threatening, and harassing-free life. The head game that was played with him was only done in order to knock him out, so to speak." Now, as you can see, an organization that catches pedophiles also catches a lot of hate. Aside from Bruce, take Scott Morrow, for example, a Canadian that ran corruptedjustice.com. Clearly, this was a play on words, and he must have had something very personal against the organization. And so did NBC journalist Stone Phillips. He claimed Perverted Justice was entrapment because the underage decoys usually brought up sex first. This is ironic, because NBC ended up collaborating with Perverted Justice to create the legendary television show that we all know and love, To Catch a Predator, which we cover in the next episode. There's a lot more that we can delve into, but the tea is running cold. The big takeaway is that Perverted Justice started it all. They were a first mover in the early, tumultuous days of the internet. Despite all of the drama, it's because of them that we have 623 convictions and a legendary television show that carried on the flame. Perverted Justice retired in 2019, but their website remains online as an archive, and you can view it to this very day. In the next episode, our journey continues. Things will get darker, creepier, and weirder. That's the nature of Untold Truths. You're the frog in the boiling water, and I'm the chef, slowly turning up the heat.